All right, I'm pretty sure we've got audio now.
Yay!
Just see if everyone out there can hear the audio. Hello, thanks for coming along. We will be with you shortly. Again, a few more changes have occurred. A new computer system's come into my life. And so...
And a new computer system came into my life.
Oh, there you go. We can talk about new computer systems.
Yeah!
Yay!
I'm sure that's why everybody's tuning in.
Yeah, quick response from the audience about hearing the audio. Yeah? No? The undead will destroy all. Can you hear us? I hope so.
I did just hear it on the YouTube page.
Oh, cool. You played it out a little.
Yes. I had to mute it because I was hearing myself talking,
All right then. Well, let's get straight into it, eh?
Yeah.
And it's on a 3, 2, 1, and...
This week on the Adobe Video CHiNWAG, we explore advanced color and light with Lumetri Insight. Reduce the work pile using a shared grading style. Observe the sneaks of some advanced techniques. Set your color goals high as we aim for the sky. Join the live stream with John Barrie and Paul Murphy this Wednesday at 7 PM Melbourne time.
Hello! Welcome!
Oh.
Welcome. Remember this thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so make sure you get out there and put together your little code password. It's on the other side of this. I can see it, and you cannot.
I can't read the serial number.
What do you mean? It is the serial number. Is that blurred?
Yes.
We'll get around to that in a minute.
Got to be in it to win it.
Got to be in it to win it. I must say, Cedric Robertson is leading the stubs for how often he has registered. Every single week he's got in there. Yeah, new backdrop. So I will say g'day to our illustrious co-host, Paul
Hello.
Murphy. How are you, my friend?
I'm ecstatic today. I just found out that a feature documentary that I was editing for 2 years has been accepted in competition for Tribeca Film Festival.
Well done.
Yes.
Applause. I need to get all these sound effects for like cheesy applause. I don't think I've ever heard.
Whole sound box.
Yeah. You know what? Jimmy would probably be able to fix me up
it.
with all that stuff, wouldn't he? Jimmy Harmsworth. He's been dadding it up and still dadding it up, and that's great because I get to hang out with Paul more.
Yeah, I'm ignoring my kid right now.
Oh, that's fair enough. You need some alone time. You need some dad time. Actually, it's the opposite, isn't it? It's non-dad time.
It's non-dad time. Yeah. He was actually playing with my microphone just before I came in the room and had pressed a button I'd never pressed before. Oops. And I could not figure out how to get the microphone on. So I have my own tech issues.
Yeah. Ugh, scary. Well, speaking of scary, I've just realized, again, in my haste, I've not yet got my CHiNWAG sheet up with all the little notes that we were making earlier today.
Yes, I haven't even done that, and I'm just going to wing it. No, I'm just going to wing it.
You're just going to wing it?
Yeah, I'm just going to figure it out as we go.
All right, fair enough. Well, that doesn't seem like any different to any other week where we kind of last minute just go, oh yeah, hey, we got to do the CHiNWAG thing. I'm neck deep in this non-alcoholic beer, so I'm just going to go for it.
Neck deep in this alcoholic coffee.
You have alcoholic coffee? Wow.
No, but wouldn't that be cool?
It would be cool. I think it's called an Irish coffee.
That is correct, and my last name is Murphy, so it's all coming together.
All coming together. All right, well, let's jump in. So the topic for tonight is Lumetri. It's about the color and light and some of the different things that you can be going about doing inside of that Lumetri color panel. There's a few things that not many people know of because it's not a standard sort of a practice. We'll touch in on being able to take a secondary tonal map and make that a track matte and then explain why that might be of use to get a bit more flexibility on the light side of manipulating the lightness and brightness and contrast and the shadows and the highlights within that particular hue range. There might be some good opportunities for you to try something a little different to do that.
Yeah, and lots of little tips and tricks along the way.
Yeah, we've got a few. We've tried to make sure it's not covering, the boring stuff and the stuff that's just easy to find out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say this: when I was first actually before I was introduced to Lumetri, I was introduced to Adobe SpeedGrade.
Yes.
And one of the best things I ever learned is if you want to understand what a coloring tool is doing, just throw a black and white gradient on the screen and start pulling sliders around while looking at your scopes. One of the best things I ever learned, and if I'm sort of like, I'm not sure what that does, black and white gradient will help you figure it out.
Yeah, that is true. That's actually something that we would do testing things out was, especially with like 10-bit versus 8-bit and other things like that, we'd just have like a gradient that would be our test bed. And then, you can start manipulating things and sort of see how the changes affect what you're looking at on the scopes. If you've got any questions, if you're listening in live, you've got any extra questions, please throw them in. We will do our best to cover the topics that you bring up as well as the ones that we've prepared earlier. But, this is all about you. So if you have got questions, we'll try to prioritize that first. All right, I've got the schedule up now with the sexy new list of the things that we're going to cover. And so I'm going to throw over to my desk top. That is my desktop, not my desk. Oh, I've just realized I didn't really answer the question earlier. And that was, new background. I'm actually in a new space. So I have a new laptop. I'm in a new space. The background is actually the desktop background, but these are two big monitors behind me. I'm actually in one of the new boardrooms that's in the new Adobe Melbourne
I
office.
don't think we can see you at the moment, John. I think we can only see me.
Oh, my bad. My bad. So now you should be able to see both of us. See, this is why I need someone to help with the tech stuff.
That's why I'm paying close attention.
So there, let me do that.
Yeah.
Okay. New screen stuff behind me. Slightly different lighting config. Not that happy with it, to be honest. I'm in a boardroom in the new Melbourne Adobe office. COVID prevented me from getting in earlier, but now I'm in. All jacked up with all the internet that I need and new space to play with. So that's that.
Nice.
All right. Now that we are on my computer screen, we'll start to play with a few different things. And one of the new things is that I wanted to highlight is come out in the latest version of the 2021 release, which is pretty cool. Now, let's have a look here. I've got my Lumetri color panel open here. And if you go into the creative section, you're probably already familiar with cycling through the different creative looks, okay? And you get to get a sense of what a grade might look like if you were to add any of these particular looks on there. So if I took this SL Blue Intense and click on that, then, kind of get that like for like, but that's a little boring. So what I want to do is actually come up with something I've made earlier. Where is it? It's in my effects list. Let me just bring that up. Effects, pretty sure it's in my presets. Here we go. So in the presets, where you've got the Lumetri presets, and I might just try and make the view a little bigger. No, I cannot make it bigger. Well, when you're in here, take note of what's going on at the level of the thumbnail. Now, the thumbnail looks a little different. What's different about that? If I move that through the thumbnail, notice it's actually showing me the frame that my playhead is parked over. How cool is that?
That's very cool.
All of those presets. So if I went into the film stocks one and looked in here, I can see out of all that different list there, and the same with the technical ones, and the speed looks. So we've got different ones in here too. So as I scroll through them, I'm actually getting a preview there of all the different options based on the current playhead position. So if you've got a slightly different shot that you're going to work with, and I'll just import something crazy like from, where are you, buddy? Demo assets. Oh, I'll get some GH5 footage here. Okay, so this is where I've grabbed one of the files from. Let's look at swans. So the swans are now in here. Cool. And if I move my playhead over the swans, you will see that my effects listing is showing the swans, what the swans footage would look like. Swannies.
And is it updating? Is it updating with your playhead?
It is. It takes a second to get there, but it does re-update. Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'll get like some log footage and I'll have no idea like log what, and I'll know I just need to throw like a basic LUT on it to get the color back. Yep. And it would be great if like I just saved a bunch of those starting LUTs as presets, and then you could just go, that one's the one to start with. That would be so much easier.
Yep. So yeah, if I click on the CineSpace 100, double click on it, I've now added it. So basically taking this concept here, which is over in the creative section, but now it's giving me this very quick adaptive way of checking out anything that's a LUT that's sitting in there, including a preset that I can put in there myself. So while we're in there, I'm just going to reset, use the little reset button here up in the top right to reset the look that I've got there. If anything, I might just clear it completely so there's absolutely nothing on there. Then I'm going to go to my libraries where I've got a couple of looks that I've made. I'm pretty sure that's one of them. Yes, it is. And then I'll actually save that particular look. You know what? I'm going to tweak it a little more because I'm kind of happy with it. Oh, you know what? I'm going to leave it. It's fine. I'm not going to get too crazy. Maybe I will.
Cedric put in a request for you to mute your audio tracks. I wasn't hearing anything, but maybe they're going out specifically to Cedric.
That's probably true. Good call.
Shift S to turn off scrubbing.
Well, there's that too, but I like to make sure that it's muted. Because it's not just a scrubbing, because if I was to hit play, then the same sort of thing. Right, it's all dead. All right, this has clearly got a look to it now. If I wanted to, I can quickly turn off that entire stack of what's going on inside of that Lumetri look by hitting the FX icon up there, and that just turns off whatever's happening in the Lumetri color layer that I'm currently focused on. And then while I see that it is on, I will select from the top right 3-line hamburger menu, or also known as the contextual menu, and go down and save a preset. Now when I save the preset, I'll call this warm tears of joy, just because. Why not? Now when I look in my effects and I see my warm tears of joy, I can park that on top of whatever footage I've got, and I can see what that particular look would look like with that footage.
Which makes sense, right? Because you're not just choosing these things theoretically.
Right.
You want to know how it looks with that particular bit of footage.
Exactly. So if I was to double click on it, you can see that it's going to have this look. It's too blown out. It's not the right LUT to sort of get things going or have a look that's going to be the right way to get going. And I got that update there in context with what I was looking at before. So previous versions before this update came out just the other week, you were stuck with this view where it showed, let's see, no, it's going to remember the last thing. It used to show like a face. And it wasn't a really good indicator as to what it was going to look like if you were going to add it on top of your footage. This is way more useful.
Totally.
Okay.
We got a question in here, John.
Yeah, hit me up.
Are the technical Lumetri, do you say Lumetri or Lumetri?
Tomato.
I think in America we say Lumetri. Are the technical Lumetri or Lumetri presets a replacement for the old video limiter effect that they used to have in Premiere, or is it a bit different? Are the technical Lumetri presets a replacement?
Aha, that's a good question. Let me just dive in here to look at the technical. Where are you? Technical, right. So you've got full legal range.
Oh wow, I've
10-bit,
never even noticed this folder before.
Oh, dude. Oh my God. Look it up. It's been there for a little while. Okay, cool. This is good. I like how we've spun into a slightly different direction. So yeah, if I was to add, well, now I'm adding on top. So I'm just going to reset all this stuff. Clear, clear, clear. Now the reason why I hit clear so many times there is that each time I was adding these looks, I was creating a new layer of Lumetri. So you can focus in on one at a time, but you can have, when you look at the effect controls, you can have multiple instances of Lumetri effect layers. And then depending on what it is you've got in the list here, notice here it says add Lumetri color effect. That means that you can start to dedicate certain ones and rename them so you've got a bit more context of what that layer is meant to do. I'll talk a bit more about that and show that a little bit later. Yeah, so you got your legal ranges in here. So let's look here. We got like 12-bit, 8-bit, and then you've also got like full to legal or legal to full. So you can be kind of compressing and expanding the range that you've got to work with as well.
So these are Lumetri presets.
Yep.
But what settings is it using to do that? Is it a setting that I don't have access to? Can I just see the basic settings if you just throw?
Sure, I'll just throw one on.
Throw a legal one on.
Yeah, I just threw it on, and I don't know whether you noticed there was a
I
tiny
totally
little bump,
noticed. Yeah,
total little bump there, right? Off, on, and that's probably got to do with having the full range. So right now, this is sitting on. Let's look at this particular clip here. What are you doing to me, buddy? All right, if I was to use, just say, Alexa, no, yes, no, I just want to go to, no, that looks horrible. No, that's worse. Probably worse still, but anywho, oh well, it's probably just my screen. If I think about it, I think that the monitor that I'm looking at, that actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
When I look at the feed, I need to settle down on my contrast on my other screen here. That's what's going on. My bad. And one should always have their color settings set up correctly when they're doing color grading work on the screen they're working on. There we go, just made that a little less ugly for me to work with. Right, now let's also add on top of the Ari look that we did.
Yep.
I'll go and rename this one too. So we'll take that name off. We'll just call this basic LUT 709.
Yep.
Right, for the color space. And then we'll add the full legal range. Oh, let's do the 8-bit.
Yeah.
8-bit one. So notice that's like
totally
stretched it out and it's made that look really ugly because it's 8-bit. It's losing a lot of the sampled color data out of it. I'll just undo that. Let's put it on to legal to full. I want to go from full to legal range, 8-bit. Okay, so that's squashed that down. And the legal range is probably that top and bottom end getting compressed back down, giving it a bit more contrast.
Yes. So I don't know what settings is controlling that.
I don't know either because it comes in as a LUT.
Right. So I would say I don't feel confident saying that this is a replacement
I wouldn't either.
For the limiter. I feel like the limiter will be able to do much more than what this is doing at the moment, where you can actually control what happens to those levels that get maxed out. It feels like we don't have any control on that here. Right. But it would be interesting this seems like an interesting thing to look further into for sure.
Now, what I will say though is the limiter got updated. So if you type in limit in the effects search, you'll see there's actually the legacy one, the old one, and then the newer one. The newer one works way better. It's actually properly staying within legal limits.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one kind of wasn't that locked down.
A few things squeaked out through that other one.
Yeah, kind of didn't quite do the right thing.
I got a couple of broadcast rejections on it.
The new one, which has been out for a little while, should be working properly. So if you do need to use that one, and we'll look at it through here, I do like to add my controls down there so I can keep seeing my ranges. Let's have a look. Let's go to 100, compression before and after. It looks like it's sort of staying relatively in range right now, but if I start pushing it like crazy, oh, you know what? It's the LUT. That LUT is forcing it to stay.
Huh.
Haha. Wow. How's that? That is fascinating.
Requires further investigation.
Yeah. While we're here talking about this and I'm using the slider, another thing that was on our list is to talk about the slider itself. So
yes,
the slider itself, if you were to click and grab the circle that becomes a full dot when you click on it and drag it hard left or hard right, that is only a limit based on the slider itself. The values that sit on the side, you can continue to push and pull that further than the boundaries of the slider. So if I click and drag on the number, I can go down to -7 instead of -5, being the low end of the exposure side. And the same with the other way, I can go up to 7 in the positive.
So it really comes in handy with those other values with your contrast and shadows and things like that.
Yeah. And especially if you're trying to get something out that maybe you don't want to put a LUT, you just like to go in and start to mess with the contrast and sort of build your own basic LUT for the shots you're working with yourself rather than using a standard. So let's have a look here. I'll clear all these again and kind of start with something that's flat like this and show how if I was to push out the contrast, it stops at 100%, but you can see I've still got plenty of room to go. So I'll click and drag inside of here, and now I've got it up to 150 instead of 100 on the contrast levels. The highlights, I'll push them up. The shadows I can bring down, and you can see I'm starting to get a lot more range going on in there. I might bring the highlights back while I push up my shadows. And so that, without that contrast, so if I was to stay at that 100, you see now it's quite a bit of difference that you get if you start to use the value itself. And if you click inside of it, you can use the modify keys, and that will, if I hold the shift key up and down, I'm moving by values of 10. If I didn't hold down a modify key at all and use the up and down arrows, I'm moving at a value of 1. And if I was to hold my control key on a Windows machine or command key on the Mac, I move by increments of 1/10. So that's now 143.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, so on and so forth, until I go all the way to the top.
Because it's important to establish that, you know, Lumetri is this great tool that we have at our disposal, but the very design of it is to try and keep us within what looks good, right? Like it is trying to control what we're doing a little bit, and it's good to know you can go outside of those slider limits, but it's not like the old curves or the old 3-way color corrector where you could sort of mess up a picture very quickly.
Yeah, if you want to start messing up a picture pretty quickly, if you start pushing your secondaries too hard, you can start to break things.
Yeah.
And I don't mind breaking things every now and then, but yeah, that's usually where you'll get in the most trouble. Or the curves can kind of catch you out too. Another thing you could be doing is using the curves. So that's just another thing to think about if you're doing any of this color work. You might not want to start at the top down. I know a lot of colorists that want to start with the curve. They want the S curve.
I want to start with the curve.
That's how they begin.
Yeah.
The basic design behind the way Lumetri works and why it's a vertical layout is that it has this top-down type of way of working through. Notice if I click down and click on the creative side, it hides now the basic correction. So we don't get filled with all these options here, which makes it kind of nice to be able to just stay focused on the controls.
Oh, we're not seeing your screen, John.
Oh my God, thanks. This is why I have you here with me, mate.
This is why I'm here.
Plus, you're great to talk to.
Good to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Good looking rooster.
Yeah. It's the curves.
So yeah, the curves. But the top-down thing, basic corrections, getting into creative. There's an assumption that's been made with the different people that were tested for the way this was working, but the reason why it's vertical, top-down. A lot of pro colorists, though, want to start in the curves. So this is where it can make sense to turn off everything else other than what you want to be using, because it helps you then see, I just want this particular layer of the Lumetri color layers to be for my curve. So I'm going to rename this one and call it curves. I might call it curves basic just because for me this is the start of getting it to kind of look right. And I'll go in and start building out my S curve.
I immediately feel more at ease manipulating an image this way.
Right.
To this day, I still feel awkward pulling those sliders up in the basic settings, even though I kind of know that they're doing the same thing that the curves are doing here.
Yeah.
I just feel like I have more control manipulating a curve. It was explained to me a long time ago, and it continues to make sense to me.
Right. Well, there you go. So that's a beginning use case, right? I'll just make sure I've got my where are we here? Effect controls, so we can see. Oh, I've got the video limiter on. Let's get rid of that. So I have this Lumetri color curves basic in brackets, and that's what that's for. Now, I'm going to make a new color effect and call this one, rename, I will call this blue secondary, because I want to pull out the blue in the sky. So again, I'm just going to go in and untick all the things other than what I want it for to allow me to start. And I you know what, I've noticed that for me, I prefer to start with the pre-selected tonal ranges and kind of work it slightly different way, other than to use the eyedropper. Eyedropper's kind of I guess an easy way to kind of start going in, but for me, I don't know why. I actually like, let me just reset all that. I like starting with that blue range, then I turn on this color gray, just so I can really see what it is I'm doing. At the moment, it's actually not that strong. It's a bit subtle. At least to me, it feels a bit too subtle. So I'm going to change this out to be black and white. And so now when I start messing with this, I can see, ooh, that is dirty, which means it's black or gray. It's not purely grabbing that hue. And I want to get just the nice bit of sky in there. Notice, though, that it's got the entire saturation range and light range, or luminance range. I don't want to do that. I want to start pulling some of this in, but I don't want to get these weird blobs either, because if I was to work like that and then start messing around with, say, the saturation, it can come out blobby looking. That actually doesn't look too bad, to be honest. But if I went right in there and I started probably playing it, it could come out looking blobby because I've got some pretty weird, oh, look at that, blobs. There we go. There's some blobbiness.
Yeah.
To get rid of the blobbiness, or at least reduce it anyway, you can grab the bottom section of that range and start to feather out how the tonal area that I'm looking at right now, which is kind of the mid-ranges of that Luma range, I'm starting to spread that mid-range out into the dark ranges. So I'm starting to build grey areas. And as I move this up and down, this is how I like to work. I prefer to work this way. So I get to see things. Same with the saturation level. I'll soften that out and start to find, again, just where I want my clouds to kind of really come through. So now that I've got it set to like a color and the black, I can see that a little bit better. I can see how that's affecting the transition between as well. So that is another way to start messing around with the tones. Now, I don't want to go crazy with the saturation like that. Let's put that back to, 100%. By the way, if you double click on any of these slider nodules or nodes, that resets that particular parameter. So if I was to push that into the blues, you see my blue range go crazy, and my my oranges in the scopes there really change, although it's only affecting the sky itself. Now, to me, this feels like the sky is probably a bit too intense, a bit too bright. So if I go down into the options in the HSL secondaries, I've only got contrast, really, if I'm not looking everywhere. If I want to start messing with the highlights range, I can pull down on the thirds, the three-way color corrector, the mid-range, the highlights, and the shadows as well. But I might want to have even more control.
Yes, it still feels a little limiting, doesn't it?
It doesn't quite feel right, no. I think, though, to be honest, my curves that I've got in there is probably not enough to really give it the punch that I want. So I'm going to temporarily go back to my... I went back and did that in my blues, sorry. Back in the curves. Basic correction. Okay, blue. I'll turn the blue off. I really want to bring a lot of this in. It's still too bright. Like, it doesn't have enough contrast in there and enough color coming through. So go back to my curves, turn on the basic correction like I have. Oh, look at that. It's actually doing, it is doing more stuff in there. I thought I did just the curves. Where did I do the curves? Did I do that in the secondary? No. What is going on? I'm losing my mind.
Did you do the curves on this one? Oh, you did, didn't you?
I did curves in there.
Have you got another effect applied?
I don't know now. Now I'm like really confused. You've confused me. I've confused me. Maybe I hit reset. Maybe I
play the tape back.
Play the tape back. All right. Well, I've got curves in there. Crikey. Reset that. Curves. Let's get these curves right in. Okay. Don't want to crush any of the tones in there just yet. Right. Good. 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 I haven't crushed anything yet. The S looks terrible, but this looks all right. Okay. Bit more contrast. Yes. The highlights maybe down. The whites maybe up. Okay, I think I'm starting to feel like this is kind of getting a bit better of a range of tones. Then I'll go back to my blues and turn that on and off and on, and I can see the sky is now sort of popping. All right. Well, that kind of works. Good. So what I wanted to do is actually go into this sort of more advanced thing. Have we got any questions or we're good?
We're all good at the moment. The last comment was we can't see your screen, and I think we answered that question. Now you can see.
There was something I've just noticed. I was just taking a quick look myself. It's saying here, Yale's in the group, chatting away. Woohoo!
That's terrifying.
It is terrifying. Scary stuff. So the uncheck clamp signal, there's a question about that. What happens there? If I was to unclamp that signal and start pushing this too hard, you'll see the values at the sides that give us 100 nits or 100 sort of volts or whatever, whichever way you're looking at it. And the 124, because 0 is considered a value, 124 in the 10-bit range. I'm going to go down into the 8-bit and start to mess around, and you'll see things kind of go a bit crazy. So if I start to unclamp the signal, let's have a look here. That should be going a bit crazy. I might be in a float, actually, where it's not restricting what I'm looking at. So
just the scopes, though, right? It has no effect on the actual image itself.
That's right. It doesn't actually clamp and make safe. the ranges. It's just got
Yeah.
to do with what we're looking at here. That's interesting. It's actually not making any difference at all. It used to make a difference.
I guess you wouldn't expect it to make a difference in float, right?
Yeah, you'd see the spikes kind of go right up and out of there, where it would go. The view that you're locked into to see the range, it would go outside of 100, and you'd get this weird sort of spike that sat up, and the 100 value would shrink down and look a bit less. It's kind of interesting that it's not quite doing it the way that I would want it to, or at least expect to see it. Yeah, interesting. Clamp signal, not clamp signal. That used to do some pretty crazy stuff. Like it would totally...
Yala's suggesting that Lumetri is not letting us go above 255. So Lumetri is clamping it anyway.
Clamp, what are you doing? Yeah, right. Pretty sure it used to behave differently. Huh. Okay. I'm going to look into that one. That is interesting.
A few different things to research.
Yes. Need to start with a clip width over bright. Possibly. You might be right. Okay. Because I did shoot this flat on a Panasonic camera, so it's not got full... It's not sitting in a HDR range. I didn't shoot HLG, although the camera can do HLG, HDR levels. This is, I'm pretty sure, just relatively flat. Let me see. Oh no! Oh no! I hung up on Paul. Whoops. Now we're finding Paul.
Yo!
Keyboard shortcuts suck, man. They mess with our wonderful signal. So let's go back into...
Am I off camera now?
No, you should still be in camera, but no, you're on camera.
Okay.
Oh wait, maybe you are off camera. No.
I'll try and get in camera then.
No. Stay where you are.
Okay.
Stay right where you are. I know
That's
what's going on here. I'm going to fix this up, and you're going to see me fix it up in real time because it's the real thing.
It's a lot of my face right now.
It's a good face. Don't be so negative, man. There we go. I got you in there. All right, boom. Now you're in, and you're full screen, and I'm in there too, and we're back. And then we go to desktop with the picture-in-picture. Sweet. Good to go. Gotta love a live show. I was going to check what the properties were. Me using keyboard shortcuts. What an idiot. What an efficient idiot. So let's have a look here. It is 10-bit 422, not HLG as a recording format. So therefore it won't have blown out areas that we can bring back in. All right, I'm loving the conversation. This is good. This is what you get when you do things live.
It's funny how Lumetri always brings out the questions.
It does, doesn't it? It brings out the curiosity.
Yeah, I'm curious about what you're going to do with this secondary that you've created. Well, because I'm wondering how could I push the color correction of that secondary even further.
All right, I'm glad you asked. That's a great question. And I've just used a keyboard shortcut, and I don't know whether we can still hear you or not. I can hear you.
I can hear me.
Good.
Testing.
So I can't. This is killing me. I can't use my keyboard shortcuts. All right, I'm going to grab this shot in here again, right? So we did some blue things. We messed around with the blue. Now this one, I'm going to take the effects controls. I'm going to take the one here called Curves Basic and right click on that and copy that and then go and paste it onto here. Paste. Oh, you know what? I could just select from here and paste. Boop. Now, that looks way blown out. Why is it looking so way blown out? Oh, because I started messing with all that stuff. Oops, not auto reset. Okie day. Cool. So this has got a bit of a look going on. I want the blues in this now to be what I want to manipulate. outside of there. So I'm going to hold my Alt key and drag that up, and now I've got a second copy of this. I'm going to turn off the clear, the Lumetri color there, and go into the HSL secondaries and start with my colors here and see what I can do about getting that particular range that I want, which looks sort of like so. I need to use my other monitor to check out what this looks like. It's so bad. Right. So in there, I'm going to focus in on this particular range. We're getting into that, and where it's white is where I want to keep it. All right, cool. So like I said before, when you look down, you've got this mid-range highlights and shadows and contrast overall, but you don't really have any other sort of finite controls as to what it is you're manipulating, and you can't see values. It's a little bit might not be what you want. You might want a bit more control. So the reason why I put it up here is that I will also go ahead and use in this mix an adjustment layer. So I'll put my adjustment layer in between and bring this out. And on my adjustment layer, from the effects list, I want to use the track matte.
Good old track matte. It's been around for years.
So now when I'm in track matte mode, I want to make sure I'm using the Luma range. Although right now we're not looking at Luma range. Okay, I need to go in and make it the white and black and make sure that it's turned on the way that I want it to be turned on. There we go. So anything black should not be affected.
It's like classic masks in Photoshop, right? Black is ignore, white is keep.
Right.
Or white is effect.
Exactly. So let's see if we can't find that range a bit. That's a bit better looking range of what I want to affect. Alrighty. So back on the adjustment layer. Got to make sure it's set to Luma. Then you tell it what track to use as the track matte. In this case, it's track 3 because this version is on track 3. If you were to move that up, it's not going to be in sync, right? So just be aware of that. All right, now when I'm in here, I will make sure everything is, well, it's all cleared. There's nothing on the adjustment layer so far as using the Lumetri options, right? The tools you've got in here. So now when I look at my basic controls, I've actually got control of the exposure, the contrast, the highlights, the shadows, the whites, and the blacks of that mask, which is just the blue ranges. Oh, so let's see. I can now push.
Look at that.
And pull just the sky, right? Now, to me already, that looks better. If anything, that looks like a more natural type of tones you'd find in the sky where it felt like that, but it doesn't look fantastic. It doesn't look that manipulated. So this is where you start getting to see quite a bit more controllability. And you can see there as well how much flexibility I've got going on in here. And if I start using my modify keys as well, I can start to make some very fine adjustments that I would not be able to do knowing the value of what I'm messing around with if I stayed inside the HSL secondary and only worked with these sliders for the 3 different major tonal ranges and contrast. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about and haven't.
So it's having the robust control of the Lumetri panel within a secondary, which is otherwise quite limiting in its controls.
Yep. And then I can start messing with even the tint of sort of what's going on in there too. So now I'm actually making it very blue, but notice it's not messing with the tonal range or the colors, the hues that sit inside the building. Right? So now I make it blue.
Yeah. You can see that
the sky is just getting really punchy, like a really beautiful autumn day.
And that red piece in front of the boat is untouched.
Staying right there. And if you wanted to, you could keep your eye on, I guess it's that circular bit there is probably this section with the red in it. Like the shadows are kind of getting a little messed around with in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if I want to start manipulating everything else outside of the blues, then I go down to my original. And then I might make another layer down here and rename this one and call it warm tones, which will not affect the sky because the sky is actually on top. So now I can start playing with the warm tones, and I'm warming the clouds, but I'm not warming the blue sky.
It's nice.
So let's look here. And the shadows are really affecting the buildings quite a lot there. So yeah, there's more ways and tricks you can get more fidelity. Now this stacking looks a little bit crazy. So what? Well, does it? Right. So that's another thing. Does it? Does it really? You could start doing things where you're using a combination of presets that you're creating, and you can create certain tonal ranges. You go, right, this is my blues preset. So you use the preset to make a HSL just for the blue range. You might make another one for the green range. You might make another one for skin tone range, and then drag and drop and use it in that way to start coming up with where you'd use that in the stacking process.
Yeah, and this doesn't even have to be a color grading tool either, right? Like you could use this as an alternative to keying. Like if you're keying something that isn't a green screen, it's just a natural background, and you want to select certain colors to pull out.
Yep.
You can use this to key something.
That's so true. Yeah. Let's see here. I wonder if I can do that. Well, I am not prepared for that, but you're right, and we won't go down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see what else was on our little list. Secondaries, expanding the light flexibility, which is what we just looked at.
Well, I wonder if people would be interested in hearing a bit about. I mean, it's old news to some extent, but the new curve setting, I feel as though is a huge thing for me, because I'll admit I'm a bit lazy as a color grader. I usually don't have the time to pull perfect secondaries. So the opportunity to just say, look, that color there, make it brighter, or that color there, make it more saturated. Like that's how I like to operate.
Yeah. And this is in the curves, right?
Oh, screen.
Oh.
I got to do my job.
You do, and you're doing it so well.
As much as I like looking at my face.
No, well, you're saving me big time. Okay, so under the curves, we just looked at the standard RGB curves. They've been there forever. This is where it gets really interesting. This is another way of approaching the secondaries as well. And you've got quite a bit of flexibility here. Difference is, well, again, you don't have values, and you could expand on the flexibility that we just started to manipulate with the adjustment layer and the track mat and da-da-da-da-da, plus use this as well to continue refining all the different Luma ranges that are affecting the saturation, the hue versus hue, and all that, all these different options in here as well. So it's actually quite a lot of options to do color grading inside of the Lumetri panel. It's just a matter of the way you approach it. It's a little bit different than what you.
So let's change the color of that red thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So hue versus saturation, no, that's not what we're doing. We want to take the reds. Now there's actually another section of red over there.
I find it's really important to explain what these names are, because I don't find that they're intuitive. But the way I think of it is that the name of the first thing is the thing that you're going to select, and the name of the second thing is the thing you're going to change about the thing you selected.
That's an excellent way of approaching it.
That's like my basic Neanderthal mind. This is what I select. This is how I'm changing it.
Very good. And for those of you who are not sure what hue means, or chroma, it just means the color. It's the color value on the rainbow. So we've got a spectrum of color here, and I will use the eyedropper, hue versus hue. So I'm taking the hue that I'm selecting and I'm going to hold my control key down, which makes my eyedropper just a little bit fatter, which gives me a slightly different sample range to get just the right sweet spot. Now, notice we have a horizontal range of tones and colors there that's to do with the hues. And if I was to hold down the shift key and then click on the middle one, you can see now I have a vertical range of hues. So if you were to look at the absolute 0 point of both the X and Y axis of these two lines, it is red is red. Now if I go up, I'm going to push into purple and then blues. If I move down, I'm going to go into the yellows and the greens into the cyan. So if I start moving up, I'm going to manipulate that into, lo and behold, purple. Oh, now it's blue. Oh, now it's getting into cyan, right? So that is there to give you a very clear view as to which direction you're pushing the original tone. The original tone is across the horizon, and the vertical is where you're manipulating it to.
I love Cedric's line here. I say what you select on the left will change what is on the right, just in terms of the naming of these different curves. I like that.
Yeah, that is good. So there's more in here, right? So now you've got that hue versus the Luma range. Now what I'd like to see come in as an advanced way of manipulating all these different extra layers that you can work with, I'd love for there to be like a power selector. So then you could like make one selection of the range and all the eyedroppers for all the different areas select it.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. If you think that would be cool,
user voice,
then go to user voice and you know, you could put in your particular range of things that you want and make sure you have a voice. And then, you know, you can relax afterwards.
Yeah, I lived in the States for 6 years and it didn't.
You could relax on one of these sorts of things because, you know.
How would you get such a thing, though? That's the question.
Well, yeah, go to the user voice and vote. You can ask people to come in and vote on your things. Right, back to the work.
Yes.
So currently there is no way to do that. So I have to go in.
This is just a great alternative, I think, to secondaries. It just click and change.
Yeah. One thing I really like is this Luma versus saturation. This one I like to mess around just in here. So this is like instead of having an S curve that is what's the word I'm looking for? Diagonal. This is like an S curve that's actually running sort of on a slightly different skew, like a different direction. Notice here I've got, well, if we look in here, we can see that what's happening here is that green's getting affected, right? So this is the Luma, the brightness, the dark shadowy bits getting, and the saturation of that dark area, that is now having no saturation. So you can see that the majority of that red is gone.
So that shadows on the left, is it?
Well, yeah. And so if I go up to the top, anything that's red, that's a bright, that's a very light shade of red.
Yeah.
Right? But at the moment, it's a fairly dark kind of shade of red. So I can crank that up and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm making it more saturated in that darker range, but I'm having no saturation on the very bright parts that are red. So you can see there I'm kind of expanding it and contracting it.
That's very interesting.
There's a lot of control in there. And it's actually kind of catching a lot of the reds that make up that brown that's in the building there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can imagine how much fidelity you've really got when you start to put together several ways that you could approach secondary tonal values and hue values and all that sort of stuff, mix them together and you get an extremely powerful way of making these manipulations. And then also by adding up more and more layers, you can be focused in on that specific range that you want to work on as well.
Yeah. Well, this is the way that I like to work. I like to do like a primary level I'll do a face that's just focused on a face. And then I'll also have another Lumetri layer that is just for vignettes. And I don't mean like shitty. I don't know if I'm allowed to say shitty or not.
Sure, say shitty all you like.
I don't like those shitty broadcast vignettes that are just really thick and crunchy.
Yeah.
I like a subtle vignette that more sort of replicates how light falls in a room, and that will always be my top layer. And I don't do that with the vignette setting in Lumetri. I'll do it with curves and a mask that I draw on Lumetri.
Yep. There's multiple ways to do that. So I'm going to actually look at wrapping up on that. So I've just put another instance of the adjustment layer on top, and that's going to be my vignette. So instead of using vignette, which let's take a look at it, it's
pretty basic.
Look, it's very basic, and in a lot of cases where you're doing quick turnaround work and they don't really have any kind of budget to sit there and have you play around with all this amazing fidelity of the image that you could go into, you're just going to throw that on and the customer's going to go, oh, this looks great. Oh, that looks fantastic. Oh, that's even better. Oh, I love it. It reminds me of Kodak days.
My philosophy on vignettes is you shouldn't even notice it's there.
That's right. It's a power window because it's creating that sense of being drawn into a specific part of the frame.
Yes.
But it's done in a very editing and grading, you shouldn't notice because it's part of the storyline. It's part of the emotive, immersive experience of what you're watching, right? The content itself. Now, there's a few different things. You highlighted that it's pretty basic. It also doesn't give you a lot of range around what's being manipulated. It's almost like it's just doing exposure, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's center
not subtle.
of frame.
Absolutely. So I don't like any of this stuff. Go away. You know, I'm just going to reset the whole thing.
Yeah.
So just like what we were doing before, I want to manipulate based on exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks. I want to really make it blend in and not stand out. So I'm going to use a slightly different way of doing it. Multiple ways to do this. I want to use, let's see, I'm going to use the box here. No, I'm not going to use the box. Let's delete that mask. I will use a mask. I will start with something like this, just so you can start to see that fidelity, what it means to you. So if I just bring that right in, that looks terrible. I'm going to invert that. Now it looks better, but it still looks terrible. Reminds me of my boat, actually. Kind of looks like, and by the way, you're looking at the end of my boat. Although my flag's gone. I lost the flag. Bloody wind. Was that a joke at the pirate status of the... Good on you, mate. So there we go. We can soften this out. I can expand it out. I can move it wherever I want it to be as well. And I can also turn it. So already we've got lots more control as to where the shape is going to go. If I really wanted to manipulate the overall angles of this, where's my controls? Here. So I could start to manipulate the shape of it too, right? Now we're starting to get into some more advanced sort of things. I don't want the sky to get looking too weird. I kind of want to, I'm really manipulating where I want that eye to go. And I'm more than happy to just sort of leave it like this for now, just to give you a better example.
Well, you know what my final step is always? Most of my vignettes start looking like this, and then I will go to the opacity of the mask and start to play around with that as well, just blending it with the image, seeing, how much I can sort of play around with that. But,
that is definitely another way to go in there. So something else that you can, and I've studied a lot of this, where sometimes in the vignette, there is actually some softening. So on that sharpen level, I can now, within the range that I've created there, I can now soften it. Now, you probably won't notice it so much until I invert it. But there's actually now a softening inside that mask range that I've just created. So it's not just doing a darkening of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
I've also seen areas where the vibrance is affected by it too. Because
Yes.
as soon as you start taking away, and it's this manipulation of light and color,
Mm-hmm.
you draw away attention.
Yeah.
So there's all these extra little tricks that you don't get when you just use the vignette option.
Mm.
So yeah, this to me, that feels relatively natural
Yes.
in comparison to what the other option was before. I
And
can see how
you're
nasty my
drawing the viewer's eye too.
yeah, I can really see how nasty my clouds are. I would have to go back in and start manipulating the tonal range of
Yeah,
my
just
track
soften
map.
them out a bit. Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, there's lots of different things you could be doing. Hopefully you learned a few things. Hopefully some other some Cedric's said stolen by pirates, by rival pirates.
Melbourne Pirates.
Melbourne pirates. Yeah. I'm going to look at, this is my blue thing, right? So if I go in here and I start messing with that, you can see how I'm now manipulating more of the way the blues are being affected. And if I had this going out to another monitor, I could from here start to play with what my softening edges are on the range that I've selected within the blue. And it might even be that I need to go in and start playing more with that shade of blue. Is it more the light blues, the cyans moving into the greens, or is it actually more of a deeper blue that I need to be messing with? And just find that real sweet spot. Obviously, working with a small screen like this, very difficult to see, especially.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that looks a little better. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to be.
that's a
It's
nice soft touch, I would say.
better. I would still say it's not quite right. Although when it's playing, who the hell's going to notice, right? And I did change. Yeah, see, I was dialing in the. I kept messing around with the iris there, to get a slightly different look for the amount of light I had coming into the shot as I was shooting it. But anyway, cool. Well, that's the show.
Yeah.
That is what we have
Is
time
next
for.
week seriously our last episode for
No,
the season?
it's not. This was episode 9.
Okay.
Took a 2-week hiatus.
Oh, of course.
School holidays.
School holidays.
I just couldn't get my head into the game properly. I kept trying and I kept sort of going, and then I was like, you know what? It's school holidays. I got my daughter with me. I'm exhausted. She's 13
Yes.
and she's got a lot of energy. Believe it or not, she's not locking herself
So
up in a room.
I've got that to look forward to. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's good fun. I will admit, I had a great time.
Good.
But yes, episode 9 today, episode 10 next week. The final one will be episode 12.
Right.
And that's
so we've
when
got a few more.
We will draw for this. And we'll find out if Cedric's weekly, that is the correct way to spell that, by the way. I don't know what this junk is. What's this malarkey?
That's how I spelt it for 6 years. And I had to do dates backwards as well.
Oh, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Family does come first. Just saw there. Nice of you, the audience, to say these sorts of things. So, yeah, we've still got several left.
So if you have any topics that you would like us to cover that we have not yet covered, please tell us now. We will talk at length about anything that you are interested in, so long as we're interested in it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for showing up, for those of you who are here with the live. If, again, you're watching this later on and you feel that there's a topic you want to know more on, did I just say moron? I think I did.
I'm just used to you saying that around me all the time.
Oh, wow. Use the comments section of the video feed where you're watching it. I will be uploading a lot of the replays into Facebook, although at the moment they're all sitting on YouTube. So that's another thing I'll get around to eventually. Thanks for joining us. Ciao for now. We will see you in a week.
So long.
Bye-bye.
Until then.
Ciao, ciao.
This week on the Adobe Video CHiNWAG, we explore advanced color and light with Lumetri Insight. Reduce the work pile using a shared grading style. Observe the sneaks of some advanced techniques. Set your color goals high as we aim for the sky. Join the live stream with John Barrie and Paul Murphy this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Melbourne time.